Hello, everybody. My name is Mirko Novakovic. I am co-founder and CEO of Zero, and welcome to Code Red. Code, because we are talking about code, and Red stands for requests, errors, and duration, the core metrics of observability. On this podcast, you will hear from leaders around our industry about what they are building, what's next in observability, and what you can do today to avoid your next outage. Today, my guest is Ido Bronstein. Ido is the co-founder and CEO of Upriver, a startup committed to preventing bad data and ensuring data accountability across organizations. He previously led engineering teams for Israel military intelligence, where they built a central platform to extract insights from vast amount of data. Ido, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, very exciting.
And I always start the conversation with the first question, which is, what was your biggest Code Red moment in your career?
Wow. So, of course, there were a few. I decided to choose the one that happened like a couple of months ago. Funny story. So, me and my partner, like my CTO of the company, were in a bachelor party in Greece, like having fun with our friend. Like we are very best friends, like years ago. And we landed on Tuesday night. And then in Friday morning, our phones, our Slack, like got crazy. Our customer support, like consistently calling us. We started to investigate a huge shutdown of our platform. So a bit of our platform, behind the scene, we are running Databricks. And Databricks has a major incident of their own in a couple of regions. And because we didn't handle a timeout correctly in our API server, it's completely blocked all ability to access our platform. So while we are in like the bachelor party in the villa, everybody having fun, drinking, we are outside debugging, trace out everything with our engineer in the Slack and our customer success that updating the customers all the time. So all the events, and like we finished to debugging, understand what the problem is and fixing this incident. I think it took us 5 hours, something like that, but it was crazy. It's like a huge incident in the wrong time with very like little ability to understand what happened easily.
I can understand. Did you catch up on the beers later on?
This is where our payment. So we had to.
Yeah, let's talk about Upriver. I mean, I found it very interesting, right? The whole data observability space and you coming from the military. I think you are now the fourth or fifth Israeli and ex-military in the kind of observability space. And it makes sense, right? So I think you have worked on data intelligence. And so tell me a little bit, how did you come up with the idea of Upriver and what is the core of it?
So Upriver is a shift-left data observability platform that creates a layer of observability to the data, specifically for data pipelines. And shift-left means that we found the problems at the source when the wrong data or bad data ingest through the pipeline and very close to the producer of the data. Like other tools in this space that find the problems very downstream when it's already passed through a couple of stages, where it loses the ownership on the incident. And only that. So our goal is to bring the ability to understand data problems for the producer, usually or mostly software engineers, and take ownership on those problems. So this is, in a sense, what Upriver is. I will start by explaining what data observability is for the audience that does not know the platform. So data observability means that you need a layer of observability to the data. So in heavily data systems, everything from an infrastructure perspective or an application perspective can look very good. But due to small modification in the data, the downstream data product can be non-reliable, cannot be wrong, can be a massive incident for the company. And I will give like couple of examples. So for example, you have like a gaming application that uses extract a lot of metadata and data on the user, so they can recommend the user on his next stage, on his next boots, and they have AI behind the scene that doing this process. And now there is a new release to iOS version, to Android version, and couple of the fields that the application usually even collect right, or the format had changed. So let's look on the flow of the data. So the data is going to start from the application. It's then going to go to the backend. Then it will go to some lakes or some ingestion process. Then you will have a pipeline in ETL that will transform, clean, and model the data. Only then it will arrive to the AI engineers that will try to run the model. Then they will train the model on something. And the data that the model will receive in production will come from a really different pipeline. So, for example, right now, in this new iOS version, someone changed how the timestamp is formatted. It's going to affect the model. It's going to affect the transformation. So any change in this data could affect the model, the performance, the product. So our ability to find those problems, those changes at the source, connect them to the downstream impact, and explain to the data engineer, data scientist, and ultimately the software engineers that creates the data, what the effect of this change. This is, for me, data observability, the ability to look and understand how data changes affect my system.
Where do you look at the data? Only on the database or also inside of the application code?
Today, what usually happens is that all of those events are usually thrown into like Kafka or S3 bucket, and only them started to be monitored by the data engineer. So today, we look on the data in the minute it's ingested to the pipeline from the Kafka or from the S3. Ideally, we will want to connect it also to the application layer, like how the data is passed through the microservices themselves.
Okay, but that makes sense, right? You look at the Kafka messages and then you analyze those and you see any difference in messages. But you're also looking at the data inside of the database or not?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
When you are living in the area of the microservices, you have a lot of governance. Like you have APIs and you have tests for the data. But once you throw this data to the data land, you have no guardrails. You don't have idea what these data engineers, analysts, data scientists doing downstream, and you don't have any idea that some change going to affect them, going to destroy their production system. So I think like we are sitting in the point in the middle that makes this connection between like the two domains.
I remember when I was an engineer 20 years ago, you already had the same problems, right? You did a data change, but then all the ETL pipelines that shifted those data into a different data store, they were all broken, right? Once you change it, they are not working anymore, right? And that's, but I found it interesting that how do people find you? Are they searching for the problem? Because it's something that I think is for a normal developer, not a typical tool you're familiar with, right? And you even know that it exists.
In companies that they are very heavily based on data, they know they need data observability, data quality in place. So there is some education in the market that this layer is needed. In companies that the product is heavily based on data, and they know that what is happening right now, that more and more companies is shifting to be very based on data. And just for as a nice side story, in this SRECon that is going to happen in October, there will be a main track on data and AI, and a lot of different lectures on data observability. I know because I'm in the technical committee. So there is a shift where SRE, where companies is more aware to the need of data observability, but it is education that is going to accelerate with the adoption of AI, with the real adoption of AI, not just POCs, POC here, POC there.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does it essentially also play into, I can see in the classical machine learning, I can definitely see that, but with Gen AI, I can imagine that, is it still that important in that area? Because I mean, it's trained on literally text more or less, right? And interpret the text. So is it still as important there as it is in areas where you really rely on the format of the data?
Now we understand that then like more and more that what is different between how one company uses AI and other company uses AI is not the model, is the context. And the context is the data that the company have and the company use. And this is actually the knowledge that you bring into this generalized model. So if the knowledge that you bring to this model is wrong, so it's not going to act correctly. And you can see that like there is another category today that's called like LLM observability. I'm sure you know that. They're trying to trace all the prompts during the wave. So you have so in the end, like everything will cluster. But when you're looking on chatbot, and we have this like already customer that we check the data before it goes to the chatbot, that without being able to say, okay, the data is reliable, the data is correct, they cannot release this chatbot to production.
What is your typical user then? A developer?
We have a user that are engineers and data platform data engineers. So when you're looking about like all the data engineers, there was a lot of engineers came from like the BI side, and a lot of data engineers came from like heavily data pipelines, Spark, and area. So usually we work with more data engineers that are more engineering in the character. And we have, for example, one of our customers is a huge edtech company. They are building data pipelines, they have models, but in the titles, they're all engineering in the end. We are helping any engineers that build data pipeline, even data engineer, software engineer in the end. And when we are doing shift left, usually we bring this incident, like the understanding of what happened in the data, to the engineer that's responsible for the data.
But you need a running application, right? You need the application to be running in an environment so that you can actually monitor it. Or can you already do that looking at code?
No. So we are a production. We are a production tool monitoring. We connect. So I will take 2 minutes to talk about how our product works. So we connect. Maybe it will give the whole picture. So we connect the data of our customer from the stream on the Kafka to the bucket on the S3 to their data warehouse to their operational DB, the Mongo, the SQL, the Postgres, to everything.
And that's an agent, or what is it? Or you connect from the outside? How?
So we have both deployment. We know how to run this compute in our environment or in our customer environment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we are starting to analyze the data. We extract semantical and statistical insight from the data, and then we create automatically monitoring rules in 4 different layers. The first one is schema, just helping companies manage schema in a complex pipeline. Secondly is format, semantic form of the data. If it's a URL, if it's a country, if it's a phone number. Third, metadata, freshness, volume of the data. And lastly, metrics on the data itself, histogram, cardinality. All these metrics we are putting in our AI. We clear the rules, learn what is the usual behavior of the data. And when there is an incident, and our AI recognize that, we send an alert and we connect this alert to the lineage. So the lineage, it's like the APN of the data people, like the flow of the data, how the data move from one table to other table to model.
You detect the flow automatically, how the data is moving, or?
Yeah, so it depends. If it's a table that is built by SQL, so we know how to automatically create it from the SQL logs by reading the dialect. Or we use Open Lineage, that is an open source. I don't know if you are familiar with that. That is like open telemetry. So they standardize how the telemetry on changing data need to looks like. So they adapt, our users adapt this open source SDK, and we know how to collect it and show end-to-end view of the data.
Okay, I didn't know this. Lineage is the name?
Open Lineage. Open Lineage, yes.
Okay.
Yes, amazing project. Like, I think that really take the inspirations from the open telemetry.
And so then what is an incident? How do you detect an incident? It is when there's a change on the data format or...
So I will give you a few things that happen to our customers. So for example, like it's easy to correlate with like very stupid incident, but that is of course more complex. So for example, one of our customers had like a name column and a description column, and suddenly he pushed the name to the description and the description to the name. So data flows, everything's look okay, but the data itself was wrong. So our ability to look on the distributions of the length of the strings enable us to say, hey, something wrong happened here. You have a shift in the distribution here and here, and it's going to affect you on those data products using the lineage. For example, another example, a URL format, something very simple. So one customer concatenate the domain twice to the URL when he built it in the backend. So suddenly we saw like a couple of times like the HTTPS prefix, and it's a wrong format. So, and it happened only in 10% of the data. So we told them you have a shift in the format histogram in your data.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I just trying to understand it, but that's pretty cool because that happens a lot of times, right? That you change code, you basically introduce a bug that's only visible on the data, as you explained, right? I add the HTTP suffix twice, and I normally can't see it because from a, I would say, programmatic perspective, right? I'm a normal observability guy. Everything is fine, right? The performance is fine. There's no error code. You're injecting a string basically, and the string is a string, right? And you don't have a semantic check. But what you are doing is you monitor the data. You know how that field looks like, right? It's an URL. And now you see a change. You call that shift, as far as I've understood, a shift in the data. So it has changed. And now you can inform me, hey, it's probably not, you don't really know if that's an incident, but you can at least tell me, hey, something has changed, right? Significantly. So it looks like there is either a problem or it could be a change, right? But that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then what do the users do? Do they create alerts on it?
So we create alerts automatic for them. So we learn all the threshold by our AI, and the experience of the customer is very simple. Like run our CloudFormation, give us like ability to connect the data from our environment or his environment. We learn data for a week, or if we can backfill the data so we can learn from the past. And we need a week in order to handle seasonality. And then we just starting to send him alert anytime that something weird had happened.
And so tell me about your AI. I mean, I love to talk about AI, right? At the moment. Everybody's talking about it. Just before this talk, we talked about AI native company, right? Everybody's talking about it. Nobody knows what it is, but doesn't matter. Everyone is an AI native company these days. Yeah.
Yes.
So you too, probably.
So we are, of course, AI native company. All we do, we are using AI. But joke aside, like we are really using. I personally use it all the time. Like it's just a so powerful tool. So
yes,
from brainstorming to like everything. So I don't know what it's mean AI native. It just integrate also in what my developer is done, my marketing is doing, and myself. But in our product, we have smart component of AI in a couple of places. First of all is the semantic. How I understand that a column is country. How I understand that a column is a name. How I know that the name is connected to the last name. So what we do, we connect the raw data to the semantics. We extract the entities, the semantic entities from the raw data. And this is what we want to monitor. So the extraction of the semantic is one place. Then we use AI. It's combination of like advanced AI and mathematical statistic. Yes. In order to understand what is the threshold, what is the usual behavior of the data, and when you have out of order data piece. And lastly, we use it in our root cause analysis. So we also need to understand what is the regular correlation between places. And then what we do is we also we take all the metadata that we collect, lineage, data sample, formats, shifts in distribution, and take this and put it as a context to an LLM in order to create a very good root cause analysis.
And I can imagine, I mean, we do something similar on logs, right? We also check the semantics, the patterns. One of the issues there is, or not issues, one of the challenges is that if you have millions, I can see the same for you, right? There could be millions of messages on Kafka per second, per minute, whatever. So you have to do this on a very high scale, right? You have to look at those messages, and then we do something like fingerprinting, right? We fingerprint messages so that we don't have to do the heavy lifting all the time, but understand patterns, etc., like a fingerprint, and then only do like the real AI on messages that we haven't fingerprinted yet, right? Which are new to us. Do you do something similar, or can you really analyze all the messages?
We sample the data from the start, because like we work with a massive data pipeline. Like our biggest customers have something like 200 billion records per day. And if we want to sample the data, like the compute of this will be enormous. So we know how to sample the data smartly in order to be efficient on resources, but not to create a very wrong prediction to the statistic and the threshold and the rules that we create. So we needed to handle these problems, let's call it, at the beginning, where we actually extract the data from the customer environment.
Yeah, that's I mean, I know sampling, it's not easy, right, to decide, because you can do easy sampling, which just means, hey, I keep every 10th message, but that normally is not really sufficient, right? So intelligence sampling is not easy to create. That's interesting, right? Because it's one of the problems that also in open telemetry, like in the collector, you have tail sampling and different sampling approaches. And one of my ideas on sampling, by the way, is that you kind of, and I can see it same here, you need to apply the usage pattern to the sampling algorithms, right? If you understand, and you do, right? If you understand better how the data is used, what data is used, where it's used, what is queried, then you can apply that knowledge somehow on the sampling statistic, right? For us, it means in observability, if I understand which data is queried, which data is put on dashboards, which data is used in alerts, that data is then a higher priority in the sampling pipeline than other data that is not used, right? Because you know that it is in dashboards, you know that it's queried. And these kind of things we are at the moment evaluating. How can we make a sampling algorithm more intelligent based on the usage of that data, right?
Of course, I completely agree with you in that this is exactly the things that we are handling. I will say that on our sampling algorithm, that the user have ability to segment the data, tell me, okay, I want to look differently on the US and Europe, and then I know to sample differently those areas. So if the US is very big, and like the US is 90% of the data, and Europe is only 10% of the data, and you tell me, look, I want to look on those as a different segment, so I will focus on the US and create all the statistic on the sampling on only specific segments of data.
It's like a tariff. You put a tariff on the EU data.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. And then you talked about this shift left. How does it change the way those developers and data engineers are working if they have your tool compared to, I also saw on your website, you have CI/CD integration. So how does it change my day-to-day work? Is that data feed back into my pipeline into what?
So amazing,
How are you using it?
amazing. For the software engineer, it gives them ability to be proactive about the state incident. Instead of getting a call from a data engineer telling them that yesterday they did the deployment and through their models, now the software engineers will get the alert first in the Slack or in its CI/CD if it's like run our scans and monitor during the CI/CD process. You are right, we have this ability. He will get a notification, we'll know what the problem is, what its effect, and instead of waking out in the middle of the night because a data engineer or the CRO complains that the prediction on the revenue of the company is not working right now, and he needs to do the quarterly report. Now he will get this advance. He will be proactive about solving this because he will understand how his change affect on the data that affect a business asset.
You started Upriver. It's pretty early, right? Still for you in on the journey.
Yeah, pretty early. Yeah, we're running like a year and a half right now.
Wow. And how big is the team, if I can ask?
So we are around 15 people.
Oh, nice. And so how do you see that going forward? What are the things you want to build? What's your vision on the next steps of the product, and what do you see working here, especially in the context of AI, right? Where I think for every company, data will become as you said, right? Context is king, data quality is king. So I think this topic will become a major topic for every company, right? Because every company will use AI. Every company has to provide context and provide their data to that AI model, right? So this will become a major topic for everyone, right? If it's not already, right, for larger database companies. But I know also in Germany, a lot of companies are not there yet, right? It's still at the beginning. So how do you see that product evolving, and how do you want to help those companies?
So there is two fibers for this question. First of all, how AI will change my product, and how AI will change my customers day to day.
Exactly.
So I will start for the other one. For my product, we are going not only to detect problems but also to remediate them automatically. We are pushing our ability forward to not just understand what had happened, but also to understand how to fix that. And this is where we're going.
And sorry if I ask, do you do this like, are you providing MCP server and connect it also to some other tools, or how do you want to solve that?
So we do it today, but we also connect to the Git and analyze the changes and correlate them with the data, understand how a code change affects the data, and connect it to our incident response platform. And the second part, and for me is more importantly, it's how it will affect my customer. So more and more companies is going to be AI companies, AI native, as you said, and they're going to adopt AI as a core part of the product. It means they will need to trust their data. It means that they will need the data observability tool. So my TAM, the company that needed my product, is only going to increase. And the tipping point will be when the SRE group in those organizations will adopt data observability. And it's happening and it's shifting. Today, data observability is being sold to the data organization, but I see more and more SRE groups that are searching a data observability tool as part of their tool that they have to require. And I see it, like you can see it from a couple of signals. First of all, as I mentioned, like the SRE con and how it put data and AI in the focus. And secondly, just a quarter ago, I think Datadog acquired a data observability company. I don't know if you know that, Metaplane. So Datadog is going to bring to the market the first observability and data observability value proposition. And I believe it will resonate with a lot of customers. So they will be, in the end, as I said, a merge between those categories. Right now, there is not, but if I'm looking 1 year forward and they see how AI affects companies, what needs its drive, the SRE will need data observability tools in order to continuously create a reliable system.
I know that Datadog is investing heavily in this whole AI space, right? So makes sense for them to integrate that. And if you look back, those observability platforms are becoming wider and wider, right? Yeah. Security use cases, data observability use cases. Yeah, I can totally see that. It is today, I would say it's still a category of its own, right? The Monte Carlo worlds, right?
You asked me on the future.
Yeah. But I can see that. I think I agree with you. I think it would probably merge together, right? Because with AI, data is coming closer to the core of any application, right? And it will influence the, if an application is running correct or not, right? Heavily. So you will need it. Absolutely. Yeah. So what's your plan? You want to integrate with vendors like us, or how is your thought on it?
So we have a couple of partnerships with observability platform. You know, the Israel ecosystem are full with good observability platform. So there's plenty, as you mentioned. A lot
of them here, CoreLogix and
yes,
Evigo,
Groundcover, yes,
Lumigo, right? It's also in there. So we had a lot of them here on the podcast already.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they're great guys.
Hey Ido, I really enjoyed it. For me, it was kind of a new topic. I know the space a bit, but for me now it clicked, right? I really understood how you got from the, I would say, Kafka topic, following the data into the database, generating this lineage, which I haven't heard yet, but then understanding how the data flows through different systems, and then understanding semantical changes, right? Which I like, right? Not only syntactic, but also semantical changes on the field level. So pretty amazing technology. I really wish you all the best and hope
Thank you very much.
You will kill it.
I'm enjoying to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for listening. I'm always sharing new insights and insider knowledge about observability on LinkedIn. You can follow me there for more. The podcast is produced by Derzero. We make observability easy for every developer.